All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to Designing Effectively for Future Learning with our presenters, Karen LaPlant and Zala Fashant. And feel free to take it away.
All right, here we go. Well, welcome everyone. I'm presenting today from Athens, Greece. Karen is in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, where she spends her winters. Obviously, with all the snow and cold we've had in Minneapolis, neither one of us is there during this winter time. So we've moved on, and warm welcome from both sides of the Atlantic, and we'll get started here. Really talking about the future of higher education and the directions we're going. One of the things that we'd like to just start off is sort of looking at the traditional model. And as you sort of glance down that list on the left-hand side, you'll notice a lot of these things that have come into place. And I think that most of us recognize that from our own college or university experience in higher ed. Really what we're doing is proposing that there's a future model, and especially with the onset of AI and the other kinds of things that we have for tools at our disposal right now, students are going to be able to do a lot more with that. First of all, you'll notice that in the past, the power of learning was sort of controlled by the institution. Now it's controlled more by the learner because they've got easy access. They've got access to learning right in the palms of their hands as they carry their smartphones around. In the past, we wanted to know as a student, what do I need to do to graduate? And it answers the questions in the future. Why do I need to use this? How will I use this? And we really need to focus on those kinds of questions. The past, we had at the end of 2 years or 4 years, some sort of a graduation or degree completion. Now there's going to be earning of badges and micro-credentials for outcomes and competency mastering. At the end in the past was always sort of a GPA, this grade that you got. Now it's going to be more of a list of particular skills that you've mastered and the competencies that you know, so that when you go to the workplace, employers know and career professionals know what it is that you really accomplished. As we look more on the traditional model, in the past again, provided a greater experience forming communities for residential students, academic courses. There was a whole campus life aspect. Now it's a lot more on the needs of learners as they need to quickly change careers. And I would guess that in the world of AI, there's going to be a lot of job changes, not necessarily job eliminations, but job changes. And you're going to need to be able to get people up to par on that. Some jobs will be eliminated. Those people will be retooling and coming back to school for new ones. It used to be the concept of going away to college. Now college is right here. It's right in your hand. We have a lot more fluidity and flexibility when it comes to learning. In the past, it was sort of a slow return on investment. You would go to a college and spend 2 or 4 years learning something, and then you would get a job after graduation. Now there's a faster return on investment, sort of a learn today, use it tomorrow model. So as we start to think about this, it's exciting and it's scary all at the same time. So let's take a look at the future brand. One, there's going to be more individual learning pathways for students. There's going to be, more of an online campus network. The ability is to be able to support students, but do it in a way that's going to be easy for them so that they can be anywhere in the world and yet have the support they need with your institution. There's going to be a lot more in the ways of the way partnerships and employment results are going to be. A lot of two-year institutions right now in programs will talk more about the fact that you have a certain percentage or an opportunity to get a job in that field. And I think a lot more four-year institutions are going to be taking a look at what it is that you're going to do, so that if you get that psychology degree, how many of our students are really working in the field of psychology rather than the field of being a barista at Starbucks, okay? A little bit of an extreme there, but at the same time, we get the idea of what it's going to take to attract and retain students. There's going to be, and there needs to be, a lot more avenues or portals for assessing credit for prior learning, because people are learning in a wide variety of manners and need to be able to bring that in. At the same time, we need to, through accreditation, say that students who graduate from our institutions are ready to go. And they know everything that we have promised as an institution we're going to be able to do. However, we need to have an expedient process for credit for prior learning. And we need to do this all at a lower cost because folks are shopping around. And I hate to use the term shopping when it comes to learning and education, but at the same time, it becomes extremely important to deliver what needs to be delivered so a student can go out and get a job and keep moving with the economy. What does the learning look like? Well, there's going to be a greater importance on using the learning management system and the tools that the learning management system is going to be incorporating. We may talk about that later on with AI, but feeding the AI right through the learning management system and getting those opportunities to be able to have everything there and everything at the fingertips of students is going to be extremely important. Emerging technologies, same kind of thing with AI, with the opportunities to earn micro-credentials, like Karen's going to talk about in a few moments, is going to be extremely important. We also want to improve the online delivery and importance. As we know through the pandemic, we were able to add, even we talked about with Zoom, there's more and more features that were added during the pandemic time. More and more things are going to be added when it comes to the learning management system and the way that, and the kinds of things that you can do to deliver your courses online so that students are able to continue learning, even if they need to not be in a physical place on your campus. New opportunities will also benefit when it comes to talent acquisition and engagement. New faculty from all over who are specialists who will be able to add much to a program don't have to physically actually move and actually be there, but they can do that. You can also be able to grab new students who are in the same kind of a thing, who want to come in and learn from you in the sense of taking a course or two from somebody who is at your institution to be able to improve job skills. Students who move for work or family circumstances will be able to continue learning. We don't have to stop or drop out simply because they need to move from, let's say, Minnesota to California, and they can't be part of your institution campus life anymore. They need to be able to do more and continue on with online. And then we also know that we're having more part-time students than ever before. And so as we look at the part-time students, people who are coming in, picking up what they need and going and returning back to work are going to be extremely important. And we need to think about, rather than you sit down and you start a four-year degree and you end a four-year degree and then you go get a job. It's not working that way nearly as much as it used to. And the last one is what I call the Amazon effect. During the pandemic, we learned that you can go online, you can buy what you want, you can get it to your house, and you can use it immediately. And I think that as we look at the Amazon effect as it comes to higher ed, one of the things we need to be able to do is deliver courses and not make people wait. And I think the idea of you can start that next semester or the next program begins in 6 months, people don't want to wait for that anymore. So that's a huge factor that's coming up in the way that we're going to be needing to deliver learning. That really causes a lot of different effects, and the challenges are immense on any particular campus. So let's talk about the way courses need to be redesigned as we go through there. One, we know that students want to see a personal connection. A lot of faculty realized that during the pandemic. They've shared that with us as we worked with faculty in online workshops on redesigning courses. We know that we need to improve access for all students and better engagement for the learners so that they're able to stick with you. And especially when they don't see you in a physical sense, face-to-face in your classroom any longer, you need to be able to engage them in the online environment. And finally, instead of faculty-centered courses, we're really changing those to student-centered courses. We've talked about that in the past. We've talked about that for a number of years. However, we're really getting to what more we can be doing and having tools that will truly, in course design, allow us to do more student centering of the kinds of courses we have. Now, more about the learning. Past learning focused really on the cognitive domain. Those of you who are big Bloom taxonomy folks, you recognize that there's a lot when it comes to the cognitive domain. What we've really learned, especially, or we're reminded of, especially during the pandemic and post times, is that learning needs to be more holistic, cognitive and affective. And really, a lot of folks who were teaching in the career and technical education areas, they started to realize that they know that the affective side was extremely important. A lot of you who have been teaching for some time, you have always pushed the affective side. However, we tended to use Bloom's only when it came to writing course outcomes, and we tended to use the cognitive side of Bloom's. We really need to focus on that affective side, because when you look at what employers are looking for in the way of graduates, they're really talking about the affective side, and we'll talk about that more in just a minute. We need to collect feedback by asking students what they need to learn better. And so I think when you go through there, there's a lot of ways in course design that you can gather that feedback. And finally, greater partnerships with employers. We really need to find ways to integrate the learning more with the employers through the internships, through a sort of work study program where you're really at the job, you're in the classroom, and you're able to do a lot more where you can see the relevance and understand why it's important. Now, I mentioned before, Karen and I have been working on for the last 4 or 5 years, this online course design institute, which really has spent a lot of time helping people redesign their courses so that they could move from face-to-face to an online environment during the pandemic. And frankly, we create a system where we do a dual pivotal kind of delivery, so that in the case you need to be able to make a shift, we get another pandemic, or, you know, we're from Minnesota, so we understand snowstorms and the closing of schools and all those things. Any sort of natural disasters, learning can continue when it's appropriate to be able to do so. So there are 2 big examples of what the current best design practices are. The first is we're using the taxonomy of significant learning. And as you can see, in using Fink's taxonomy of significant learning, we really look at those cognitive pieces over on the right-hand side of the pie and the affective side over on the left-hand side of the pie. And so you work with the foundational knowledge, the application, the integration. Those pieces that all include everything that we've talked about for years with Bloom's are all in the cognitive side. Bloom also has an affective one, but nobody really goes and looks at that and really uses that nearly as often. And so as we look at the affective side, these are the human dimensions. These are discovering more about yourself as a student, the working with others, the diverse cultures. It's also working with the caring and the building of values when it comes to your profession and the discipline that you're in. And finally, the thing that we're probably sometimes the worst at in education is the learning how to learn piece. Because if we really talk about lifelong learners, we need to teach them to learn. And we're going to need to teach them to learn more on their own and take over that in the future, because after they leave you in the undergraduate degree, or they leave you in some other particular area, it's up to them to keep learning. And if we want to get them back on campus or get them back in our classrooms, we need to be able to teach them to learn how to learn. So one of the things that we did in our book called Designing Effective Teaching and Significant Learning is we created chapters on sort of these planning and design stages for courses. And those are everything that's in the green box on the left-hand side of the screen. We also created the assessment and reflection stages. And of course, this is where we get into course quality. So we've done a lot of work with Quality Matters. We've spent years working with Quality Matters now. We've been into a lot of people's individual courses. We've assessed them. We've worked with them on campus. We've worked with them as Quality Matters reviewers. And we've also included that into more of the larger picture for program and department assessment, institutional assessment, because many of those things, the standards from Quality Matters carry over beautifully, and we can really incorporate them so that you're designing courses that you can use when you're also looking for accreditation in your programs and your departments, but also for your institution. And so that becomes extremely important. The book delivers that, and we walk through step by step exactly what it is that you're able to do. So let's talk for a minute. Looking at the future again is going to be more individualizing learning. Individualized learning, we know it motivates students because they get to be a part of what's going on, because it gives them more choice. They can learn new content. They can bring in things that they want to. They can tie that back in, as you can see by the last bullet, sharing it with prior experiences that they've had, an opportunity to dig deeper into something that they've always wanted to know something more about, and provides greater opportunities for both novice and advanced students who are sitting in the same course to be able to explore, to be able to go someplace and do something, so they don't feel like they're just treading water and waiting for time for the course to be over, so that they can get to something that they really want to know more about. So we need to do that in the course design. So your chance to participate. Here we go. In chat, how are you individualizing learning in your own courses? And how do you currently have students create their own individual learning outcomes outside of the course outcomes? So answer both, or answer one of the other questions and put that in chat, and Karen will share some of that.
Providing choice in assessments, that's always a good one. I like that one.
Yep.
Others say they don't really do it. They use their LMS badging system. I'm going to talk about that. Lots of opportunity for reflection. Choice of assignments, that's always good.
I love to hear the reflection. Not only does it help the student, but it helps you as the instructor.
And someone else said they have students look up related topics in the literature to share with other students to give them a personal aspect to topics. Great idea.
Nice.
Share personal experiences, provide the choice in the tool they use. Great. Narrative assignments. These are all good ideas.
Karen, why don't you take it over with badges and micro credentials, because I know we need to keep moving along here. Thanks for participating in those great ideas.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about a newer area, badges and micro-credentials. I've been using badging as sort of a student enticement, enhancement, engagement technique for probably 10 years now, but just internally within my learning management system. But students got excited. Well, since we wrote this book back in 2018, 2019, things have changed. And you can see up in the right-hand corner of the slide how if we had to do it today, we would call it Designing the Future of Effective Teaching and Significant Lifelong Learning. So, you know, this is all just in the last 4 or 5 years that things have really come to a head. Students want to have a greater voice in designing their learning. We know that it has to be lifelong learning, and it can be achieved through taking courses, but they can use multiple portals for obtaining and archiving their learning, you know, proving it. Microlearning, badges, micro and stackable credentials are all ways to motivate students and archive their learning experience, come up with that online portfolio, so to speak. So the thing you have to remember to do this is chunking learning into modules. That is a good way for students to better understand and retain content, okay? So what we did, as Zala said, both Zala and I have been in the Minnesota State Colleges and University system for many, many years. I still work at Metropolitan State University, a 4-year college there. And we have an IT Center of Excellence, and we have taken the high demand areas where there's not a lot of teachers in cybersecurity and data analytics, and created 1-credit modules. And this chunking, and then anybody, any IT faculty in the state can have it and add it to a course or add several modules together to come up with a 3 or 4 credit course. They love it. Students love it. It's very interactive. So just chunking is a very good way of doing it. We can chunk it and have it be digital mileposts on your own lifelong journey. But it also can document what you've learned and serve as that marker of achievement. You have to show that you demonstrate the mastery of outcomes competencies, and concepts for other institutions and for employers to really buy into it. Badges is one way. It can provide a great deal of information because of the metadata that we attach with it, okay? So you have the name of the organization that issues it, the contact information, the description or the criteria of what the student had to do. In other words, the outcomes or the competencies, the date on when it was earned, and in some cases, like in IT, we may even have an expiration date, and then the evidence of the learning that took place. So you really can see all of that online. Badges can show how a student has earned experiences in an academic institutional learning, a workshop, volunteer, and community service work. They can attach them to their portfolios and their resume. They can attach them to their signature block in their email, like in Outlook. You can document this learning. It's one of the most valuable attributes, I believe, of using badges, because it demonstrates student learning experience from multiple portals that make up their lifelong learning. More and more schools now are accepting this and changing their certificate programs into not just being an academic certificate, but a professional badge too. So badges are also called ADCs, alternative digital credentials, okay? They're growing, and I think they're going to be around. They're permanent. Large numbers are offered now by universities and corporations, okay? Corporations hit it first, but universities are coming up there. Traditional transcripts don't always serve the current workforce. Accrediting agencies are always demanding evidence of learning outcomes. So I work with ACBSP, and we're always looking for how can you prove to us that the students are meeting these outcomes. Young adults really want shorter, more things that are relevant to the workplace, okay? And they want it immediately. Open education is demanding some form of accomplishment. Employers hiring is increasing based on digital searches now, and international ecosystems are developed to support these alternative digital certificates. Creating badges through application tools such as Credly, which is a pay-for service, Badger, which is the open badges. There is no cost to that unless you want the professional tracking part of it. And BadgeOS make it easier than ever. Open Badges has created guidelines for the framework of these badge creations. Micro-credentials as such allow students to earn short credentials which are focused to provide both the in-demand skills with their career experience. And that's why places like Google is out there with their Google certifications. Stackable credentials can lead to a pathway to earn awards. So you can perhaps create a small certificate that leads into a diploma, that leads into a degree, a 2-year degree that leads into a 4-year degree. So there's all sorts of ways you can come up with this learning pathway. For many students, it's easier to think about it instead of just going full force to a 4-year degree. Think about, how they could do this and still be working and providing for their families. So students could
one
start
of the things that I thought, go ahead, Karen.
Students could start and stop as they needed, and that current or past students who have worked to earn these can continue their learning.
I always think of this as being, the carnival people figured this out a long time ago. They pulled you in, you gave them their money, you played the game, and you got some small little prize, and you kept working your way up, and eventually you could turn those in and get the much larger prize, the big teddy bears at the top of the thing. So I think that, we're really making this into something that's an incentive-based type program.
It is a challenge for institutions, okay? Because academic institutions aren't known for making their learning flexible or accessible. You have to take the course they offered in the semester they offered, in the delivery method they offered with the faculty that they have. But students want immediacy. That's one of their key things. So what we've done in Minnesota is we have what we call on-ramps for students. We have career pathways with on-ramps. And students, whether they're from the Workforce Development Center or where they're coming from, non-traditional route, they have an on-ramp, if their goal may not be when they start to get a degree, but as they go through this process and they see this lifelong learning, that may be what happens to them. You can deliver these online through devices of choice, okay, a tablet, laptop. Students are trying to use just their phone. That still works for some things. I have a couple students that came right out of high school this semester, and they're trying to do everything I teach in the IT field with a Chromebook. And I keep saying, okay, that was great for high school. Anyway, so some of the things I teach, they just can't do on a Chromebook, and they're finding that out. Develop quality experiences, and of course, changing mindsets. I think the hardest thing at the institution is the time it takes to create a new certificate, create a new program, roll it out, market it. It's not as industry can do it really fast. Most academic institutions, it's 9 to 18 months to roll something out after it goes through all the approval processes. There are some pros and cons, okay? And with those would be another way of thinking about strengths and challenges, okay? So we have to get people to understand, especially the students that you're offering this to, what a micro-credential or digital credential, what it means. And some students earn them and they never go out and accept them because they don't understand. The second part of it is you earn it, but you have to accept it. And then you decide where you want to post it for the world, but you have to accept it. There's a full range of things you can go through. Possible addition of continued learning, that's always on there for that lifelong. In many cases, it's much more affordable than going to a campus. And having to, in many cases, the online book may use OER resources or no textbook. So, even if the tuition is higher, it still may be a better deal for many. But it can advance their career goals. For workers without degree, it can advance them for those that already have a degree and need skills in a new area. Like I said, we have a lot of people in their 40s and 50s coming back now that are in the IT field, but see that the money is in cybersecurity and that's where the need is. And they're coming back to get added credentials so they can move over to another field in their career. Small and medium-sized companies can benefit, okay, without having a great big training department or a big budget or a big HR. Accessibility, because of all the cloud-based learning, is very easy. We have things like LinkedIn Learning, things like that. Emerging technologies to improve that learning quality, okay? So we can make a lot of the processes more seamless, okay? One-stop shop, I like to call it. The student goes in somewhere online and all their materials right there. They don't have to go out to somewhere else and log in. And learning can be designed to fit all ages and education levels, okay? So we're designing some for the high school level, and then we're designing some for the college level 4-year, and then we're also designing in Minnesota some at the graduate level. So you can do these at different levels. We just try to make sure that we name them appropriately so people know what they're getting into. So now what I'd like you to do in chat is respond. How are you currently using badges in your courses, if you are? And in what ways is your program and institution designing learning to include micro-credentialing and stackable badges for the future? I hope some of you are thinking about it. Okay, some say they're just starting to research it. That's pretty average. Others say they're looking at it for the workforce. That's who usually starts looking at it, customize or workforce. One says they do have a series of them. That's good. Another says they use it mostly for faculty development. That's a good place to start too. Get your faculty to buy into it. Many want to. Some are still researching. But yes, that's a good place to start, is in faculty professional development, because once faculty buy into it, then they can work ground up. Career skills are always a good area too. Yes. And some are using Credly. I like Credly, but like I said, even if you buy a lot of licenses a year, it's still, every badge you give out can cost the minimum of $2 a person. So I've been advising places that Badger gives you pretty much the same thing, but without the fee. You can do thousands of them and it won't cost you. And Steve is right, it's hard to adapt unless you get program-wide adoption. That's very true. Program or department or however you're situated out there. And that's true. You have to have connections between the courses. You really have to stick the big picture, the pathway. And well, thank
One of
you
the
for all
things-
your comments.
Yes, one of the things that I wanted to mention is that Karen and I have a course that we've developed where we have all of this with a lot more information, a self-paced online course that you can look at, and it is giving you gives you lots of examples, much more than what we're able to do in this 50-minute presentation. So let's look at those next set of AI tools and ChatGPT and all the hubbub that's come up in the last few months that people are talking about. First of all, in looking at this tool of the future and really tool of the present, we really want to spend some time talking about what's important. You need to have a plan going into this. So first of all, we're going to set some clear guidelines and expectations. That's the most important thing for you to do as a department or as a program, and also with your students. It's going to be critically important for you to do that. Communicate those guidelines in the course syllabus and throughout the course as to what is the ethical and responsible behavior, what are the best tools, and how are your businesses, industry partners, and things like that using AI right now. I mean, everyone's in the formative stages of this, so it's very confusing. But we really need to help identify this because students are going to be able to use that. And of course, teach your students the proper use. This is like every other technology advancement we've ever had coming through here. So let's talk about the challenges of integrating ChatGPT. And for those of you who've been doing it, you're going to get a chance to share some of that with us in a few minutes. Limited knowledge, it stops at a certain time. That'll be improving, as you can probably figure. The lack of understanding that comes with it, first of all, on the people who are using it, the students that are using it, and just kind of a general lack of understanding that everybody has. There's bias in it. I mean, there's bias in what's ever on the internet that it's grabbing and taking and researching and pouring through. So there's going to be bias in some of the information that you get from it as well. The difficulty it's having with complex or abstract concepts. And of course, that's getting better. I've noticed even in the last 3 months that I've been working with it, it really is cleaning up quite a few things. And now when you ask it to do something, it can give you details rather than kind of that 5th grade, 8th grade, composition essay type of answer thing to it. You can really start to get into it a little bit more, but still, it's not all the way of what we need it to be able to do yet. There's unintended consequences. You've heard some of the horror stories or some of the things that have gone on that people found out that, it gave them answers they weren't anticipating. So you've got to watch that carefully. Integration challenges when it comes to how are you going to bring it in the classroom? What are the best ways to use it with your discipline, with what it is that you're having students do? That there's always going to be maintenance and updates. I saw somebody today saying, hey, ChatGPT's been down for 4 hours. What's up? And so, when it works, when it doesn't work, and what are some of the glitches that come in here? And then, of course, it's always going to be an equal access type of thing. Will all students be able to get to this and be able to afford it? And will the institutions purchase it or whatever? So we've got the equal access issue that needs to really be discussed on your campuses. Again, the ethical challenges is the bias and fairness you talked about, the privacy. What kinds of things would you have to do? And if you have to purchase it or you have to go into it, what kind of information are you starting to give away? And I think we're all very, very cautious about our students being able to have to go in and give away any information about themselves. There's a bit of a lack of transparency and accountability thus far. Will that get cleaned up? Won't it get cleaned up? Will there be government regulation when it comes to that? There's the whole algorithm decision-making. Somebody else created the algorithm. It's going to be looking at what information it gives you, who's in control of that algorithm. Again, just like we noticed with Facebook or with any social media or other things like that, we've got to be very, very careful. And finally, human oversight. What's going to be important? We really need to, as faculty or as instructors or as instructional designers, we really need to begin to take a look at what role humans are going to need to play in this and why that's going to be critically important as we go through. So as you can see, the AI tools and ChatGPT certainly changed the landscape of course design. The other day I went in and I tried to play with having it design a course for me. And so I had it create something. I did this like 3 months ago too, and I was not happy with what it was giving me. I started to use what it was as kind of an idea, an outline, because when we do the Online Course Design Institute, we want to really share with faculty our experience of being able to use this and what we've learned and what helped and what wasn't a big help, and then where the work really began once we got what we got from ChatGPT. So it's really going to have us design courses to assess and provide learning activities based on doing and not on knowing. So let's go back. I just want to again mention that there's going to be building on that knowing foundation. What is it that you're going to be able to do? ChatGPT is going to be providing a lot of that lower level thinking kinds of things. So we don't want to spend a lot of the time doing that in a course. We really want the students to do something more with that. And I'll talk more about the book or these other kinds of things, other resources that you can have at the very end here. But we do have, if you look at the bottom link there, we do have courses that can help out with giving you a ton of great information on here. Let's go back to that wheel I showed you earlier. ChatGPT is really taking care of the foundational knowledge type of things so far. However, we really want to start to focus our course designs on the application and the integration and those higher level, even if you're using Bloom's, the higher level skills, the deeper thinking kinds of things. And ChatGPT is not necessarily very good at the affective side yet. So when you're looking at your course and your activities, keep that in mind. Let's get rid of the basic kinds of things, because that's where we think of student cheating taking place. But if we really want to take a look at it, they have to use the information and show us that they can use the information, the content that they are uncovering in your course. So let's break this down. We're going to quickly talk about improved outcomes, interactive prompts, assessment strategies, learning activities, and increased student engagement. These are all things that you can use when you're using AI tools right now. So in the sense of improving your course outcomes, we're going to spend less time on the foundational kind of outcomes. And those are the verbs you kind of see with foundational knowledge outcomes. We're going to develop and teach more toward the application in integration domains. And finally, students can actually spend more time self-assessing their foundational knowledge while demonstrating the mastery skills and doing performing skills that way. And so I think one of the things that you want to take a look at is there are many ways that a student can write an essay or write something. They can include the rubric in with that, and they can have ChatGPT give them immediate feedback to start to tell them the kinds of information, where they met, where they didn't meet, the top numbers in your rubrics, and give them immediate feedback before they even turn it into you, the expert, and you share that kind of information with them. So here's the interactive prompts kind of thing, because it's garbage in, garbage out. If you give it bad prompts, just like you do in online discussions or anything else, if you ask a bad question, you're probably going to get bad answers. So one, be specific and clear. Of course, use proper grammar and spelling. We'd expect students to be able to do that, but we need to tell them that and teach them that. Provide context, give them some more information than some open-ended, vague kind of prompt. Ask one question at a time. Get real specific with that question so you get better information. Be patient, because you may not always get what you want the very first time. Also be open-minded. You're going to have to verify the information. We have a colleague of ours that went out and did some research and found out that a great deal of the books or the resources that were provided by ChatGPT didn't even exist. And so for those of you who've done that, you may have had that experience. I've had that experience in the course that I just sort of designed the other day just for fun to see what was going on. And about probably 25% of the resources, you couldn't get to the page, it wasn't right, so you got to really verify the information that's there. It's a little bit like in math with number sense. Does your answer make sense once you get to see it? So that's the kind of thinking we're going to need to teach students. And then sort of managing the technical issues. When it's working, when it's not working, it's technology. So of course, we're going to always have technical issues with that. So just a quick interactive prompt kinds of things. There's a great ChatGPT cheat sheet. We've got it in the course, and you can take a look at it. But as you can see, you get all kinds of prompts. There's so many things out there right now that you can begin to delve into. So you've got spreadsheets. You can use it with foreign languages when it comes to translations and other things that way. You can develop content and create that. It's being used in programming. I just saw an article today about the future of coding in computer work is in danger. Data science that's coming through, writing, creativity, academic life. There's a lot of different things out there that you can use this for. So if you haven't been able to play around with it yet and you're just getting started, get into something like this and take a look at some of the prompts that are written here because they're fantastic to get you down to that detail. Let's talk about assessment. You know that there's formative assessment and there's summative assessment. And so you can actually use ChatGPT for both of those as a question answering tool for student success. You begin by bringing in something, like I said before, the students submit their paper, their essay, their whatever it is. They submit the rubric right along with it at the same time, and ChatGPT will formatively give them feedback as to what's looking really good and what's not looking so good. And they can work with that before they submit it to you. And I think that's a really great way for them to self-assess at the very beginning and get used to being able to do things like that. That's also teaching them to learn how to learn. Okay, so now you can also use it for quizzes, exams, assessments. I'd really like it to be something beyond quizzes and exams because, again, a lot of that information is way down in that foundational knowledge level. So I think what happens is that you could really start to get them to take a look at some writing assessments and again, use the rubric for that, have them do it, have them go back, and they actually give you a much improved, hopefully much improved product and that you're going to take a look at, so you're not seeing what's going on with stuff that you're making the same comments about student after student. Then learning activity strategies. So first of all, here are some of the things that you can use it for that are going to be extremely important. You've got question and answer sessions. You can have them do some of their own research to find out things. Here's what I asked it. Here's what I found out. Here's what I think about this tool and using it. How did I develop my better writing prompts? That becomes important. Some of you may have tried the virtual debates with ChatGPT. You find out that maybe you stump ChatGPT or something that way, but you can at least write, you can have students write about their experience there. They can talk about virtual tutoring. The students can actually talk about what they're struggling with, what they're having difficulties with, and then they can go into there and get some tutoring help from ChatGPT. Like I said before, you can create quizzes and tests that could be self-assessments for students. And then there's also conversational AI for student engagement. And we could talk more about that in the course that we designed to be able to get into this in a much deeper way. Finally, we've got student engagement. And of course, you've got a lot of active learning opportunities because now you've given students command and power to be able to affect their learning and what they're able to do. It gives them some personal responses to their questions and comments. It gives them immediate feedback when they give you when you put in the rubric with that and tells you how you're doing. There's an accessibility thing where students are able to be able to pick up whether it is something that they're having a difficult time with, that they're unable to do. It can read things to them. It can be able to help them in a wide variety of ways from an accessibility standpoint. You've got some collaboration learning opportunities where you get some information, I get some information, and we talk about our experience in working with this and what we think the best response is as we put that together. You can also use it for gamification, a lot of flexible learning opportunities. Again, encouragement and support. It gives students a chance to get some decent feedback, and it gives them a chance to see what it is that they're doing well. And it also teaches students how to evaluate and adjust. What did I do? How can I improve? And then what adjustments can I make to make my work better? Really, what we're doing is developing active learners to become active leaders and take control of their education. Now, in your own work, you have the opportunity to be able to use ChatGPT to reflect and communicate about the learning task for students. What are some of the information? You can ask it for what are the potential problems in giving this assignment, and it will tell you some of those things. So it may give you an opportunity to do clearer directions, provide students again with detailed and specific feedback about what they can do. It's helping you do that, so there's a layer that they're getting that before they're giving it to you, and you're giving them more sophisticated feedback. It gives the students the ability to do the self-assessment, so you're not looking at the same basic problems time and time again. It also ensures that students are, that they act on the feedback they receive. They could submit the feedback when they submit their assignment, and they can talk about the things that they did that were better. And then finally, it uses, or you can use, a variety of teaching strategies to engage all students. If they're getting more feedback, that helps them with their own learning aspect of it. So you're going to give them great feedback, exactly tailor-made for the class, but they're going to get some of the grammar, spelling, and other kinds of feedback from ChatGPT or the other groups. Here's another thing that I thought was really kind of cool. If I create a course, one of the things that ends up happening in my course is that I have this, I'm one person. I'm one person in my course. I can actually create for different units, and this is one of the things that we've done in the courses here in the Integrated Learning Technologies course that Karen and I have developed. When we look at this piece, we can actually have different voice avatars coming in, these AI voiceovers. And this person will read, as you can see, there's closed captioning at the bottom of it. They actually read the script that you create. And now I can bring greater diversity. I can bring genders, races, ages, etc., all into my course, and it speaks to them. By the way, lips move at the same time. It makes it look like the person is really speaking to you based on what they're reading to you, what they're talking to you about. So it adds a little bit of interest to that. It also makes it, it's one of those really kind of cool things, but it means something. And so if you want to do something for different units, if you want to do something for introductions, if you want to do something for student help, it's really kind of a neat way to be able to get in there and sort of update your course just a little bit to make it look good. All right, so the future of learning begins today. Learning immediate and significant. So make adjustments and accommodations. That's what AI can help you do. The students will be able to access intelligent tutoring systems, create adaptive testing systems so that you can do that. We've covered all that already. This is the thing I think is really interesting, real-time language translation. For those of you who are working with ESOL students or students whose first language is not necessarily English, what you can do is you can give them that extra help. And it also helps for them to, orally hear what's going on and being able to work with content in a different mode rather than just reading it. It's also great, works best, and it's going to be more so when it is integrated with your LMS on your campus and can really work into that. That's a fantastic approach to it. And then finally, this can be with chatbots and things like that. This could be your FAQs. It can answer specific questions about the course, and it could tell things like most students, when they have this problem, have done this, this, and this. I think those are all really great. One of the things that Karen and I are very excited about is, again, once we see the new Quality Matters standards, how will AI fit with that? How can AI help you demonstrate the Quality Matters standards as it goes through here? And I think that becomes something really interesting. So at the National Convention or conference in Minneapolis in November, I think there's going to be a lot more discussion about that and the AI and what it's doing that way. So we're looking forward to being there as well and talking more about how it can do that. So here's your chance to respond in chat. Tell us, how are you currently using AI tools like ChatGPT for assessments or learning activities in your courses? And if you aren't using them, seeing what you saw for today, what did you think might work for you in your courses?
So we have one person that says they've been using ChatGPT to help them develop exam questions using the lessons content or PowerPoint slides. Mm-hmm. Another one says they're using it to write better conference proposals. Ooh, that's a good one. Someone else said they're using it as much as they can. Someone else is using it to help them write rubrics. See, these are all great ideas. Someone else is not using them, but they'd like to start using them and discover trends in their field, discover new topics, things like that. And looking for research literature, undergrad lesson design.
Yeah. I had a meeting today with Dean at the University of West Attica here in Athens, Greece. And we were talking about kind of an innovative university that are bringing a former technical school that is now a university as well. And they've really put things together. And they're really talking about AI collaboration and bringing that into the classroom much more. So we're talking about ways that we can work with them to help them do that as well. So that's fantastic. Karen, anything else that people are putting in there?
Job descriptions, elevator pitches, all sorts of things across the board.
I think what I've found so far is it gives you a good foundation. You're going to probably want to do something with it. I don't think you're always going to just take what it says and use it. Just like we don't want students to take what it says and put their name on it and turn it in. But at the same time, I think what's really great about this is that it gives you that foundation, especially for students who struggle to get that piece put together. They have it. And so if they have that foundation to work with, what do you start to do with it? How do you start to add resources? How do you start to bring in your own experiences, other things like that? And so obviously as professional people, we're going to find great ways to be able to use this and help our students be able to use this in their careers. Well, a couple of other things that we have to share with you. First of all, please get in touch with us. Zala Fashant at gmail.com or Karen LaPlant at metrostate.edu. You can talk to us about different things regarding the presentation. Our book is there. You can certainly get it from Stylus. You can take a picture of this slide. You get the QR code that's there if you want. You get a 20% discount if you'd like. And it really walks you through all of the stages of designing courses in a fantastic way. I think, Karen, we've worked with over 600 people in the last couple of years on this. So we have at least 600 redesigned courses that we know that are doing great out there and that people are really happy with as they're using it to now redesign their other courses. And we're working with other campuses coming up here during this year yet to be able to do this. There's also these online self-paced courses that we have. One was the Online Course Design Institute, where you can sort of do it all. It'll walk you through the book. It'll walk you through activities that we do with faculty and instructional designers. There's the next one, which is Designing the Future of Effective Teaching and Lifelong Learning. And the one that we probably pretty much got right now, it's Facing the Future, Artificial Intelligence in Higher Education, where we really start talking about those elements. There's so much that we can't share with you now. It's all in there and they're very reasonably priced. By the way, if you use a course like that, you get an ebook with it, you get a certificate with it as well. And so there's a discount code on there right now. If you go to insynergy.com, which is my company here and in the United States, both in Greece and the United States, all over the world, we could do that. So take a photo of this, go to it, enjoy it. We look forward to getting feedback from you because we really like what was happening there. Anything else that people would like to share?
One person had said that he uses AI to help correct video transcripts, which I thought was interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think we're out of time, but thank you for coming today and thank you for participating. We always enjoy it. Hope to hear from some of you.
I want to thank everybody. It's been an excellent chat. I'm going to save the transcript and stop the recording.